okay? I agree with people who have a different opinion. They see it a different way. And then, you know, I try to keep an open mind. The only place I usually close my mind is when I've been through a subject and I'm coming out the other end. Okay? And no, I know that's wrong, so I'll revisit that. But I do, Jeff Belderman and I are a prime example. We've been friends for over a decade, okay? We disagree with 60% of what one another says. Shake hands and go home friends. You can disagree without being disagreeable, okay? I never listen to him, but what I don't learn something. Okay. Now, I wanted to make sure everybody here learns something tonight. If you're an engineer, you probably already know this. That's an egg. Is it hard-boiled or is it raw? You know how to find out? It spins. It's boiled. If it were raw, it'd have a liquid core, it won't spin. Now, you all learned something tonight. If we don't learn anything else, we learn something. That's my breakfast, so let's go back with it. Does anybody mind if I sit down?
No.
Okay. I was going to anyway. It's nice to have permission. Now, I want you to know that I've worked for about a week putting this together. I always do. And I made this beautiful set of notes with all the pictures that are on the presentation. And generally, you know, if I've got 6 pages of notes, I get all done and I look down on page 3. The Sasquatch Summit in Ocean Shores this year, I did my best ever. I got all done, looked down, and I was on the wrong presentation. I never got it open to the right page even. I want to warn you guys up front here. I'm still not sure of these teeth, okay? If I lose them, somebody could get bit. So be careful. I thought about talking tonight about something called DNA and what it means. But I decided I'd probably have you glassy-eyed about 20 minutes into that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start out with something a little different. In 2014, we had a gathering at Elk Meadows. I don't know if any of you know where that is, but it's on Blue Creek in Northern California in the Six Rivers National Forest. Okay? Bluff Creek is here, Blue Creek is there. There's one ridge between them. Okay? That's where we camped. Isn't that a gorgeous spot? 5,800 feet elevation. 1st of June, it was cold at night. There'd be ice on the water buckets in the morning. That was my house, and Kathy's there. I'll get into that more. I just want to give you a quick run through on this right now. This is a wonderful clicker. The trouble is, it doesn't understand me. The Go Road, Gasky Orleans Road, a tribute to bureaucratic stupidity. This road starts at Orleans, California on Highway 93, about 6 miles from the end of the Bluff Creek Road. It goes 34 miles into the woods and ends. Well, it doesn't end, but the wilderness area starts there. Then there's a gap of about 8 miles that's just cow trail. And then it's paved again for another 30-some miles out to Gasky, California on Highway 199. The reason for that, there's 30 miles of paved road inside of Siskiyou Wilderness area. The reason there is because Sierra Club has more money than a big horse can poop when it comes to buying politicians and getting their way in Congress. And that's why. They didn't want that road built. So they convinced Congress to designate it a wilderness area so it couldn't be built. In 1978, I worked for a timber company out on the coast by the name of Simonson Lumber Company. We had several timber sales back in this area. I used that road quite a bit in late May after what we did is it was snowed in up on top. We hauled the D7, we were building road in the Orleans area. We hauled the D7 cat in the Gasky end till we couldn't go anymore, unloaded the cat and let it push snow out of the way until he came out of the snow on the Orleans end and loaded the cat back on the blowboy and took it onto our roadside. After that, it was a 4-hour job, 4-hour trip for me to get from the mill to where my cutters were. And after that was opened, it was 90 minutes. So it was a big help. That's how I learned that country. Okay? This is the turning off of Highway 93 right there. Forest Service Road 15 and 01, 15 road. And that's what the road looks like for 32 miles going in. The old guy sitting on the back end of the car there, that you might recognize him. From Gasky, from Orleans, we get to milepost 32, and the paved road ends, and you dive off on the 14 road and down into the bottom. This is Klamath River and Highway 93. You probably recognize this picture without her. Okay. We did a little camera work though to make that. That's Deb Tapali. She's from the northernmost town in Australia, the big city up there, Darwin, Australia. She came over for that outing. And that's what it looks like. That's looking down into Bluff Creek. Some of those cutting units were mine actually from the late 1970s, 78. A couple of them. I don't recall which ones they were now. A couple of them were. And at milepost 32, you turn off of Go Road. It ends about a quarter of a mile beyond here. Drop down on the 14 road. And you're looking across there at Chimney Rock and the Turtle Rock. Just a beautiful place. Absolutely gorgeous place. Hey, I'm right on line here. What about that? These were some of our neighbors. There were more of these guys around. Every day we saw them. There was one big old, and I mean big, blonde-colored boar. He had to weigh 425 pounds. He was just absolutely glistening. This was in June, and you'd think he would be pretty thin yet, but he absolutely glistened with that even in June. He was just beautiful. Saw him 3 or 4 times while we were there. Saw several cubs that looked just like him. So he's obviously the dominant male in the country. And that's what we saw when we drove into Elk Mills. This was my tent. Sue from, she lived in Eugene at that time. That was hers. That's Kathy's tent over there. She's from Coos Bay, Oregon. There were other people involved as well. You can't see it now, but there's another tent behind, right at the base of that. Those are Port Orford cedar trees. I don't know if you know what Port Orford cedar is, but it's a very fine grained, beautiful cedar. And they call it pencil cedar because it's what pencils are made from. And our camp, okay. Sue, hard work. Jackie had flown over from England for this outing. There were 10 of us in camp. The most at any time was 10 people. That's all I usually want in camp. Any more than that gets to be a burden. But, and this fellow in the middle is called Stanley. Notice that there's a bag under Stanley. We'll get into Stanley a little bit more in a minute there. But I just want to let you know that he's very functional. My friend Kathy, she, like I said, lives in Coos Bay. She has a book out too that you might enjoy from I can't remember the title of it. Don't get old, it's not worth it. And Jackie and Arla Williams from Oklahoma. She lives in Orem, Oklahoma. Again, this is there you see with the other tents going up in the back. We had a couple from Red Bluff, California that moved in there and with us, and great couple. We just had more fun with them. And this group came from Oklahoma and Kansas. 4 ladies came out to be with us. About frozen to death. Here's Stanley. Stanley was my idea. He's my invention. That's what happens when you're an engineer. Took a metal folding chair, cut a hole in the seat, glued a toilet seat to it, and just so people would know it was a throne, I put my family crest on it. And that actually is our family crest from England. This is, it's on my. That's it from Scotland. We had a lot of fun, did a lot of fun things while we were there.
Hear it from this end.
Like I said, Jackie from England, Sue from Eugene, Arla from Oklahoma. Name escaped, jumped right out. Indian lady from Oklahoma also. And then Deb, Deanne, and Bugs, they were in another camp and came up and spent a couple of days with us, and their stories, you'll hear their stories in a minute. I know this isn't totally exciting, but I wanted to lay the ground. Arla was walking down the road just out of camp one day, singing. Arla has a great voice. If you ever get a chance to have her sing some Patsy Cline for you. She sounds more like Patsy does than Patsy did, I guarantee you. She will blow your mind. Well, when she got back to camp, we got to looking right there. And now if you watch that spot, she's just walking along, singing and filming. These 4 clips are taken off the video. you can see he moves. He goes behind the tree a little bit, and he comes out a little bit. And a little different. And then on this one, he's ducked down some. You see by the branch. Okay. And I'm not sure that there isn't another one there also. You can tell me whether there might not be another one over there. But we saw on this trip, we were there in camp 12 days. And we saw 7 suspects in 12 days. And 38 bear. I'm serious, those guys were everywhere. Gifty.
We just bought bear spray over here, so.
I think we smelled bad enough.
Hey.
We all received gifts. One of the things they do, go to bed at night, get into my tent, and laying on my bed is that. Another night, went into bed, and laying on my bed is that. They know I like rocks. I mean, when I was young, I picked up so many rocks, sometimes my coat pockets didn't get home for 20 minutes after I did. They were loaded. This one, Sue went to her tent, opened the door, the flap to go in, and they're laying on her bunk. Is that. Looks like a doll, doesn't it? The way it's. Kathy says, well, if everybody else is getting gifts, and she was always taking care of the fire, how about some firewood for me? That showed up. One person says, oh, that probably fell from the tree there. Excuse me, I'm not the smartest person in the world, but even I know that driftwood doesn't fall out of trees. But this is the best one. Deb came from, like I said, came from Australia. She flew into Los Angeles and met her ride down there. As they drove up California, every time they stopped, Deb would visit a secondhand store, used, treasure shop, that sort of thing, because her husband collected matchbook type cars, those little cars, and she was looking for something to take back to it. And every time they stopped, she looked for that. Well, this one particular day, she decided she was going to leave the Sasquatch a bouquet of flowers, and that's what that is. Okay? She walked, this log is laying across the creek right next to our fire. You'll see the orientation here in a moment. Okay? She walked over to the edge of the creek to lay that bouquet down.
Oh my God.
Yeah. That's laying there at about 7:30 in the morning. The coffee wasn't even hot yet. My question is, where did they get those things? We're 34 miles from the paved road. There is nobody there. Nobody. Now, it's not the best shape, but as far as it was to Toys R Us, it's probably the best you're going to find. Look at that. This was the orientation of how they were found. Now, our fire is right about here. Okay? That's where she was laying her bouquet. There's the little car. There's the firewood. I want someone to climb up in that tree and drop a piece of driftwood, cedar like that, 10,000 times, and tell me how many times it'll land on that log and stay there. It's not gonna happen, is it? This is the only visitor we had the 12 days we were there. Well, he did have a couple of people with him, but, he come walking through camp one day, carrying his own food. I thought it was pretty cool. Okay. Milepost 14, very important place. Again, we leave Orleans, up the mountain, get to milepost 14. Let me see if I haven't forgotten anything there. Okay. I'm only at page 5. Now, the reason we went to town that day is very simple. Remember how cold I told you it got? That's my tent, the interior. I was not going to be without my heater. Okay, so we went and filled a propane tank, drove down the hill, started back up the hill, and Jackie from England was in, riding shotgun. Arlette from Oklahoma was in the back seat. We came around the curve. It was about 6:30 in the evening. It was just, the sun was still up, still bright, but it was, the sun was well to the west. Like I said, this was the 21st of June, so it was the longest day of the year. Came around the curve, and there, standing right in the middle of the road, looking down into that canyon again, are those two. "20 feet range. Right square in the middle of the road. Jackie says, "Bigfoot!" Then she started talking about it. In the 20 miles from there back to our camp, she had talked herself out of having seen 2 Sasquatch at 20-foot range, and had convinced herself that she saw 2 Mexican drug mules
Say, please tell me you have a picture.
long-haired ghillie suits, flip-flops, and backpacks. Why? Because her mind knew what they were. They wouldn't accept Sasquatch. And I mean, they were from here to that back corner. Now, they didn't stay that long. I mean, they were gone so fast it looked like all you saw was the image on your retina. But they were there. They were witnessed. And not just by me. We got back to camp. Want to go there? Kathy, a couple nights later, we were getting ready to leave, and she and I sat up late one night by the fire, just talking, enjoying ourselves. Everybody else had gone to bed, and it was just she and I. it's probably close to 11 o'clock when I went to bed. She kind of put the fire down a little bit. And just to show you exactly how we were arranged, this was my tent here, and over there was hers. Notice this little cedar tree in front of her tent and a larger one in back. I blew that up a little bit to the point of being pixelated so that you can see that a little better. That's about 50 feet probably from my tent to hers. And she does this because she likes to be alone with them at night. She loves the kids coming around and playing with her. Gotta tell you a story on that. Little aside here. All night long, they were running by shaking her tent, making noise. There were tracks in the grass every day. Third morning, she came out of her tent, and her eyes looked like two burnt holes in snow blankets. Arla says, Kathy, what did you get into last night? You look terrible. She says, well, nothing really, but they're not giving me any sleep. Arla says, you can tell them to leave you alone, and they will. So, she says, can I really? She says, yes, you can. She says, okay. She says, at night, she says, leave me alone tonight. I've got to get some sleep. Go play with Nancy and Russ. Nancy and Russ were sleeping in hammocks. That was the night the term Sasquatch Pinata was born. They would run by and swat Russ and Bob in that hammock. In that country, there's cut streams where you saw where those dead down trees were, that's 7 feet down to the water. If a person were to go running amok through the night, you'd run off that bank and kill yourself very easily. That freezes you, he moves away, then he releases you, and you're back to, you can move again. And you don't have the urge to run anymore, he's not right there. I saw him as, it's okay, big fella, I got her now, I'll take over. And it was so funny, she was apologizing to him for scaring him. He was apologizing to her for scaring her. But neither one of them were hearing the other one. It was unbelievable. This was a track we found there by her tent. And that's, remember I showed you Turtle Rock? That's Turtle Rock from below it, looking up at it. And that's it, looking at it from, actually from the west side back to it. Okay, any questions on what we talked about there, and about the incidents at that camp? Before we move on, we're going to talk a little bit now about DNA and the Sasquatch Genome Project. I was involved with this on a cursory level back about 10 years ago, 9 years ago. And I'll start off by saying Melba Kitchen is not my favorite person in the world. Matter of fact, I dislike her intensely as a person. That said, I have not been able to find anything wrong with her science. And until somebody can show me something wrong with her science, I'm going to have to stay with what she's reported, because I know the whole story. If you want to read the whole story, Scott Carpenter wrote a book called Truth Denied, and he goes through a chapter and verse. Okay? Every name, every person involved, all the evidence, where the testing was done, everything is in there. I highly recommend that you get a hold of that book and read it. It's recent. What is DNA? When this started back in 2010, 2011, and she announced that there was a study coming out, all of a sudden the world was crying. And you know what they were crying? She's a charlatan, she's a fake, it's all bad, it's it. And all of a sudden people who could not spell DNA now were experts in it. Okay? And what they couldn't attack, there had been no results released whatsoever. None. Two types of DNA for our purposes. There's actually several. But the two types that we're worried about are mitochondrial DNA and nuclear DNA. And as you might guess, mitochondrial DNA comes from the mitochondria of the cell. The nuclear DNA comes from the nucleus of the cell. I want to make sure I don't miss anything here, because this is all. And they'll both exist in the same cell. The difference is the mitochondrial DNA floats around in the cytoplasm, and the nuclear DNA exists in the nucleus itself. There's one set of nuclear DNA. There are several mitochondria in the cell. Okay? Mitochondria also have the longest lived DNA. It'll live longer than nuclear, is more rugged, and there's more of it. So if you find DNA, chances are what you're going to find is mitochondrial DNA. The difference is the mitochondrial DNA comes from your matrilineal line, from your mother, from your grandmother, from your great-grandmother, great-great-grandmother, right on back to the primal mother. The nuclear DNA comes to you half from your mother, half from your father. Now, I'm told that when the mating occurs, the nuclear DNA from the father carries the gene that determines the gender of the child. And it's said that the reason for this, that if that had been left up to the female side, the child could possibly be 8 years old and still not know what gender it was. Couldn't make up her mind. There you can see the little guys. Okay. All sorts of little things running around in there. Okay, and this is a representation of the nuclear DNA. All right. Half from the father, half from the mother, they combine with the egg and the sperm combined. This is the DNA that we studied in high school biology, if you remember. Okay? If you made it a tall pea plant with a short leaf plant, and you ended up with so many short, so many tall, so many in betweens. Okay? That was Gregor Mendel. He was a priest, and he did that work. Her study started when Dave Pilates took 4 hair samples to Melbourne. Now, she didn't want to touch it. She did not believe in Sasquatch. They did not exist, and she didn't want to be involved with it. But she owed David something. So she said, okay, I'll test these samples. But she did a smart thing. She sent them first for morphological testing. Okay? The morphological test came back. Unknown, non-human primates. And if you send in Sasquatch hair today, that's what you'll get back, morphologically. Well, that was curious. For DNA study, the samples had been sent to the University of Southern California, Texas A&M University, University of Texas Arlington, University of Texas Eastern. 4 major universities in a blind study. They didn't know what they were testing. When they tested it, it came back pure human. Now she had a quandary. Morphologically, it's non-human primate. Genetically, it's human. What we found out, from their hair, we can only get mitochondrial DNA. The mitochondrial DNA, it turns out, is pure human. Okay. When we tested, now from there, they went on with 109 samples that were tested. Several universities and the best crime labs in the country. These people sent people to the gas chamber with their testimony and their testing. This was not done at any time in her sink, in her basement. This little device in the middle, that's how we caught hair. I used apples. I'd hang a bag of apples and then wrap the pole with tape and then reach up to get the apples and there'd be hair on that tape. Works very well. Okay. Don't try putting a game camera around it. There were times I had 10 to 15 gifting areas where I would leave food for them or other gifts. And I'd put a game camera on one or two of them. They quit using it immediately. As soon as I moved the game camera from that one to two others, they go back to using that one, but not use the other ones. You just want to leave the game cameras at home because they are not going to work. I've got one picture in 61 years of research off a game camera that you can tell what it is. But those are 3 of the 4 samples that were originally tested. We had a toenail. Came from Alex Hearn down in Astro, down in the Four Corners region. Arizona, New Mexico, Utah, Colorado. And one of my least favorite people in the world. He had what was commonly called the steak. Well, here people thought they were thinking of a rib steak or a T-bone steak. No, that's what it was. But it was enough material that it yielded 3 complete strands. 3 complete strands, not one. Okay. Totally classified. 3 complete strands. What did they find out from the nuclear DNA that was different from mitochondrial DNA? It had markers in it that were not human. That means the father was something else. Now, what was it? 2.4 billion records in the gen bank, and it isn't there. We have no idea what it is. None whatsoever. I live in a nursing home. I got this done today, and I asked the nurse to take it to the office and free a whole bunch of for me. She says, you know, I charge extra for being your secretary. She came back, it was all lined up beautifully. I said, you know, I just keep this up. I'm going to put you on steady. Same pay, but be steady. What does that mean? What does that lead us to understand? If we have mitochondrial DNA that is human and nuclear DNA that has non-human markers, such what are a human hybrid. Now, until somebody can prove to me that that science is wrong, that's what they are. And I don't mean, what's his name down there in Northern California, the Coalition for Reason to Do It My Way. Yeah, those people. But somebody that knows a microbiologist, somebody that knows DNA, knows research. If they can tell me the science is wrong, then I'll listen. What happened next? It was submitted, the report was written. Remember, these universities and these labs did the testing. Dr. Ketchum did not. She took the information, collated it, and wrote the report. The report was submitted to the journal Nature for peer review. Now, I don't know if you understand how peer review works, but they have 3 judges who sit in on it. It was submitted. The first judge passed it off on it immediately. No problems with it whatsoever. The second judge refused to read it because it said Sasquatch. The third judge said he read it and kept asking for more information on this, more clarification on that, and it was all in the report. He hadn't read it word one. Then another angle was thrown in. There was a fellow from England got involved. I think he was afraid he was going to be upstate. All of a sudden, he had all this information. He's going to do his own study, release his own, on and on and on, okay? Dr. Brian Sykes. I don't less said about him, the better. But he did put a fire under the situation where it had to be moved forward. It couldn't sit there and wait on Nature, and the journal Nature anymore. And so this small journal came up for sale, and she bought it and published, and that's how it was published. Of course, the haters jumped on that too. But, you know, it doesn't make any difference. Until that science is proven wrong, it's not. Okay? And nobody's done that. Nobody's even touched it. They've attacked her because she's a veterinarian and not a microbiologist. Well, I've got news for you. And 85% of the world is veterinarians who do our genealogical research.
Question, Tom.
Yes.
The Justin Smeehaw sample. I know exactly who he is.
And I never use that word, but I would use it.
I picked up you're just as nasty, you're just as ornery as I am, but you're much more polite about it.
Well,
Is that sample from his infamous killing?
Mm-hmm.
Because everything else I've heard is shot down that incident. But that actually sounds plausible?
It happened.
Okay. I wanted to be clear. Everything else I've heard about that incident has been shot down.
You'll find names as fact of how that happened. But the reason it happened was he realized finally there in California, that's where that happened. There's some powerful district attorneys there who were looking to make a name for themselves, and they all of a sudden realized he killed people, and he was due to come up on charges. So that's why they planted the bear evidence, to discredit everything else. But it's too late, it's already been done.
So his incident may actually be more truthful than I've been led to believe.
But what happened is true. The way it happened is a total lie.
Yeah, that's, as soon as I got into Sasquatch, I realized this was all about changing my opinions I've had.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've had preconceived notions, and you guys have helped shake them up a little bit for the last few months. What is that?
Now,
My preconceived notions of Sasquatch.
are these the only instances of DNA work that's been done, studies that have been done? No. Anybody recognize this?
Yeah.
Okay. Dr. Kurt Nelson, University of Minnesota, microbiologist, found one marker different from our own DNA, from the blood from that boar. For those of you who do not know what that is, this was on a Monster Quest show at Snellgrove Lake in Ontario. Dr. Jeff Meldrum, Dr. Kurt Nelson and a group were there. And this is a bear boar. They put it outside the door of the cabin to keep bears from breaking in the door. and a Sasquatch had stepped on that.
Yeah.
And they were able, that's what that marking is his foot on,
Oh.
and it left blood. Okay? Just as a little aside, they're sitting in camp around this cabin, and the Sasquatch are throwing rocks on the roof. Okay, that's 99% of the time, that's juveniles playing. Okay? What did they do? They all ran inside, shut the door and pulled the window shades.
Oh, God.
Now there's scientists for you.
Run away.
Let me say this. If you ever think you have one that's being aggressive or mean, call me up, and at 76 years old, I'll come stand between you and him. I guarantee you. In all of them that I've seen, I have never seen one be aggressive. Have I been somewhere I shouldn't have been and was asked to leave? You betcha. You know what I did? I left. I came back later, no problem. But yeah, you can get in the wrong place at the wrong time. There's some closer to home too that you might know about. The skookum cast. That you have in front of you there, that's going to be at that conference. Richard Knoll will be there with that cast. They had a lot of hair that was embedded in that cast. It was sent to Dr. Craig Newton at University of BC in Vancouver, British Columbia. You know what he found? It was contaminated. It's pure human. No, it wasn't contaminated. You think Dr. Melvin didn't know how to take a sample? No, they ran into the same thing. They ran into mitochondrial DNA. Because that's all you're going to get out of the shaft of hair, which is a quandary, because out of our hair, you can get nuclear DNA and mitochondrial DNA easily. But unless you have the skin tag, you don't get nuclear DNA out of the hair. It has no medulla. That's part of the problem. There's no hollow spot. It's solid. This one, Anita and I know it very well. Actually, they have 3 of them. It's a butt cast. Okay? It was taken over on the lake over just on the east side of the mountains. 2 years ago now?
Yeah, 2 years.
Yeah, a year and a half, a year ago last September. Okay? Found in the mud. And 22 inches wide. The tracks were 13 inches long. There's knee prints that go with this. That's over, you can see them over there probably. We had one of our group even dedicated her body to science and sat in the mud naked so we could make a comparison. You want to know something strange about that? In our butt cast, our coccyx shows very plainly. In theirs it doesn't. None of the 3 does it show. Again, there were hair in this cast. They were taken, sent for morphological testing, and came back morphological. Unknown, non-human primate. Okay. Talk a little bit about some calculations. I'm an engineer. My degree is engineering, logging engineering, and consequently I run long the numbers. And so when something happens, I've got to figure out the length and width and the depth of it. In 1976, 77, can't remember. I was walking back into the timber up on the Olympic Peninsula. I'd been hired by Scott Paper Company to do a roadside our bridge site survey for them. I came around a root wad, and here's about a 9-foot Sasquatch that you're picking huckleberries eating. And about from feet to Anita, maybe not quite that far. And, well, hi, big fella, how are you today? And he looked at me and did that classic double take, then just turned around and walked away. And the reason I was there that day is because the water had finally dropped enough and was back in the banks of the Dickey River. And I could get in there. So when he walked away, he left the most beautiful trackway across that mud that you've ever seen in your life. Well, being an engineer, I had to measure it, okay? Well, that wasn't good enough. Yeah, I knew the tracks were 15 inches long. I knew, that the stride was 52 inches. But that didn't tell me enough. So I sat down and took my own boots off and walked alongside of it. Because it was a perfect chance, because didn't have to wonder how much it had dried out since he'd been there, or, And so I walked alongside him and measured the depth and how far I sunk in compared to how far he sunk in. Then I got an idea, and I measured the area of the foot. And used that with his calculations that we're going to go through, and came up with these figures. And that's where these come from in part are from other experimentation that we'll get into, but from track length, can you tell me how much he weighs? You can if you know these formulae. An anatomical constant. You'll learn anatomy 101. We are length of our feet times 6.5 inches tall. So that 15-inch track was 97.5 inches tall. Just over 8 feet. Okay? Now, if I want to know the area, I need length and width, don't I? Now take my word for it to start with, but you're going to find the average width of a foot, of their foot, is 40% of the length. Okay? So if I want to know the area of that 15-inch foot, it's going to be 15 times 0.4, or 6, wide. 6 times 15 is 90, so 90 square inches. I measured my own. It was 32 square inches. Okay. I weighed 225 pounds at that time. I was fighting trained. That was the best shape I was ever in my life. Okay. He weighed 675 pounds. So I took his 675 pounds, again, hang with me on this, we'll get to how I got to that number in a minute, and multiplied it times, the area, 90, and multiplied it times 7.5, because they exert in their compliant gait 7.5 pounds per square inch on the ground when their full foot is on the ground. That came up with the 675 pounds. So now all I have to do is convince you that the 7.5 is right? Here's how I did that. I found a track one time that was right near the road. And I built this little rig right here. This was back in '77, I think it was. And these little outer arms are floppy. I just did that so I could nail it to a tree so it wouldn't fall over. Then I took sandbags. I had the track and the material that it was in. I made that single foot the same square inches as that track was. Then I started loading that bin with sandbags, until I was at the same depth that track was. That's where the 7.5 pounds per square inch came from. So, see, it's scientifically tested. you just had to ask her to stick with me for a moment. Oh, by the way, I saw that on, I think it was the second Snow Grove Lake, Monster Quest. They did something like that with a deal like that, only they had people to hold it up. I was by myself. But, yeah, they did the same type of thing with that. I'm not sure what their results were. Now, does this mean that every 15-inch foot is going to be exactly 97 and a half feet, 97 and a half inches tall and weigh 675 pounds? No, that's going to put it in the center of the bell curve. Okay, from there, 68% of them is going to fall within one standard deviation, 95% within two standard deviations, and 99% within three standard deviations. And you're going to have that distribution. Okay. We all do. We aren't all the same height, even though we have the same foot size. And the same thing with them. Things to look for, you find a track, is it real? Okay? There's some clues you can look for right away. Number one, the one on the far left was left by a person named Ray Wallace in California back in 1958. Okay? Now, he's been called a lot of things, but actually all he was trying to keep his job going. They were working out of camp. This was the Jerry crew, building road and working out of camp, which meant they camped out all week and then went home on the weekends. Came back to work Monday morning on the 25th of August, 1958, and here's a set of 15.5-inch tracks come down off a 78 degrees slope. 78 degrees, not percent, 78 degrees slope, according to Dr. Ivan Sanderson, who did the study on it. Walked up the road, around his cat, on up the road, and then off to the timber. Well, people started getting, they didn't want to work, they didn't want to stay there. Okay? Now, people say he made those tracks. Let me give you a clue. That happened on the 25th of August. Ray Wallace was in Costa Rica until the 4th of October, 1958. If he made those tracks, he's got portals. He's got a way of transporting himself that we didn't know about. Okay? Because he wasn't in the country. Now, look at his track. How long does it take to tell his fate? You ever seen anybody with square toes? I did it for me. Okay? Here's one thing you're going to find. You know what a compliant gait is? They walk with a compliant gait. It means that we pole vault over our knees. When they walk, their leg swings out to the side, around to the front, and comes down in front of the other. If you've ever watched one walk for any length of time, that is so obvious. The other thing that is so obvious is the metatarsal break. You can watch the foot break as they're stepping forward. Now, that's what I say. People who do all their research on YouTube, fry my goat. You've got to get out there and see him.
They walk like a person wearing hip waders.
Kind of, yeah. Okay. And when they do that, their foot lands flat. When they go to step forward, that mid-tarsal break joint breaks. Now, where they had 7.5 pounds per square inch on the ground here, now they've got all that weight on half of that foot. It goes to 15 pounds per square inch. When it does that, the front half of the foot goes deeper in the soil. It has to. Look at those casts. Every one of them, the front half of the foot is deeper than the back half of the cast. Those are real. Okay? Look at the toes on that. They're free. They're unencumbered. They've never seen shoes. every time, take your shoes off and walk in the mud and see what your toes look like. You've cramped them up with these things your whole life. Paul Graves, Wenatchee, this is his trackway. 1.5 miles.
Was that last year? Was that last year?
2 years ago.
2 years ago.
Yeah. People go, oh, that's a rabbit. It's a mighty persistent rabbit to go for a mile like that. Yeah, not only that, but he hops 50 to 55 inches per.
Those are his tracks on the right.
Huh?
Those are his tracks on the right.
Those are Paul's tracks on the right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just noticing how much smaller his tracks are.
Exactly. Yeah. Somebody said they were deer. Where'd you ever see a deer with a 50-foot print? If you do, let me know. Yeah. Okay. Now, you got a little clue now if you, when you see a track, to figure out how it's, whether it's right or not. Okay. Now, did I not put that on? I did. My heavens. I was going to say, do you want to see Sasquatch? How many in your have? I know you have, yeah. And the rest of it, do you want to know how to research them, to see them, and to really understand them? I use this. I go out and find myself a place near a stream, near water, can be a lake, quiet, protected, sit my butt down and wait. Within an hour, 2 hours at the most, there's somebody peeking around the tree. What in the world's he doing here all by himself? I learned this when I was out on the peninsula, when I was doing bridgeside surveys. You hike in 4, 5, 6 miles, the last thing you want to do is hike out, start your drawing, and figure out you forgot a measurement and have to hike back in to get that measurement. So I would take my measurements and I'd sit down and I'd do a rough drawing to make sure I had them all before I left. And be sitting there working, and all of a sudden here. Look up and here's eyeball peeking around the tree. Over here, and I go over there peeking around the tree. Every time. They will do it. But you have to have patience and you have to have heart. Thank you very much. Anybody have any questions on anything?
In several areas.
34 states, it's illegal to harm on the start, period, whatsoever. Because if it is not listed as legal to hunt, it is not legal to hunt. And this state's one of them. Okay.
Good point.
Thank you very much.